one must destroy first. We have to destroy the old in order to build the new. That is the way something is done. You cannot rebuild without removing the prior structure. The laws of physics dictate. Go out. Go down the street. Take a look at a construction site. The first thing you're going to see are tractors destroying, removing earth. Depending on what was there previously, will dictate and tell you how long that process will take. But in some way, shape, or form, destruction always predates renovation. That being said, in order for the temples to give way to a new, more beautiful, more permanent, more eternal place of connection to Hashem, our prior method, our prior place, our prior sanctuary had to be destroyed. And the reality is that those two temples were faulty from the beginning. They had an underlying problem, and that was that they were built by man. And anything that is built by man, no matter how strong it is, how amazing it's built, if it's Ford tough, if it's like a rock, right? It doesn't matter. If it's built by man, it is fallible. It is finite because a human being can only put its energy, its strength, into what it produces. And our strength, our energy, is finite. So the two temples were doomed from the beginning to be temporary places. And eventually, in order for them to give way to a permanent edifice, a permanent place to serve Hashem, they had to be destroyed. So we understand that this is part of a process. The destruction gives way to the renovation. We experience tremendous connection, tremendous revelation. In those temples, when they were built, they served in a wonderful capacity, but they're not the ultimate. And they would not serve in an ultimate capacity because they were always built by man. Now, of course, we can ask ourselves, hey, what's with the delay? And it's a valid question. The second temple was destroyed 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago. So it's been a while since the tractors have been out, and it's kind of time to start laying the new foundation. And that is true. It's a valid point. But of course, you know how Jewish contractors can be. There's a story that's told about a contractor that's out looking to build this tremendous development. He's getting bids from the various builders in town. He goes to the Irish builder. The Irish builder says, well, I could build it for 200, I can build it for 500,000. 500,000, wow, that's a pretty good price. But let me see what else is out there. So, contractor goes on to the next man. He goes on to the next guy. He's an American. American says, hey, you know what? I can't do it for 500,000. I'm going to build it solid, made in America. It's going to cost you 600,000. Okay. Finally, they see this old Jewish man, says that he's a builder. Doesn't really make sense. The guy doesn't really look like a builder. Doesn't look like he's ever worn a construction hat in his life. But it says builder, so he goes into the store. Walks into the store. He sees this old Jewish man is sitting there behind the counter. He turns to him, he says, I'd like to get a bid on a project. Okay. What have you received thus far? And he tells the old Jewish man, I got a bid from the Irishman for 500. Got this American guy said 600. What can you do for me? He says, you know what? I can do it for $1 million. He says, $1 million? That's ludicrous. Where'd you come up with the price of $1 million? He says, well, $250,000 goes to me. $250,000 goes to you. And we'll hire the Irishman for $500,000 to build it. And the reality is that, yes, our track record with construction is a little sketchy. We do finance quite a few properties and developments, but we're not always the first guy with the hammer. So maybe we should cut God a little bit of slack. But the point is to understand that even in our moments of sorrow and mourning, we recognize that there is rebirth and renovation at foot. and that this is a prelude. You must go through this painful process, and it is painful. We're not deluded. It is painful. There's a loss right now. But we also understand that that's with a very focused goal of rebuilding an even more beautiful structure later on. That remains the goal. And that's what we're working towards. So, with our sorrow comes promise, hope, optimism, that this is the next step towards that ultimate moment. And when you have that hope and optimism, guess what happens? Your eyes stay wide open. Wide open. Because we all experience these tests, these travails, we all experience them. Marriage, for example. Of course, marriage is something that we learn not from our parents necessarily, but we learn it from Hollywood. And check out any chick flick, and what will you see? Two people madly in love. Maybe it was in college or high school or at the drop of a hat or at first sight. Who knows? But it's all la-la. They go on their honeymoon and they live happily ever after. In reality, we know that marriage is nothing like that. All you have to do is look at the divorce rates to see that marriage is very, very difficult. Sustaining a healthy and productive and positive marriage is very difficult. And in every relationship, over time, your building develops cracks. Every edifice gets worn out over time and develops cracks. It's time to rebuild. How do you deal with the cracks? We rebuild, right? We destroy the old, we make the new. And a lot of guys or girls might say, well, Rabbi, that means I got to get rid of her, right? Wrong. Rebuilding a marriage does not mean that we close up shop, we sign the divorce papers, and we skip town. That is not what rebuilding a marriage means. Rebuilding a marriage means that we re-examine and we refocus our relationship. The cracks are a warning sign. Why do we get headaches? Why do we get a headache? It's actually a protective measure of the body. It's the body's warning system telling you that something is off. Something is off. You're dehydrated, you need water, you get a headache. Your foot hurts, you get a headache. Warning you that you need to focus on a specific task and area of the body. Those are the cracks in our relationships, in our marriages. They're warnings. This is not a strong structure. Your relationship has problems. So you have to decide, what are you going to do when you reach that crossroads? When you see those cracks start developing, are you going to choose to ignore them and just allow status quo to continue on? Are you going to choose to see those cracks and decide that this structure is simply not worth salvaging, jump ship, find a new building? Or you get out some spackle, get some new bricks, and you rebuild that building to even beautiful, more spacious, right? Even better relationship than before. That's the opportunity that's presented to you. And that's a reality that you have to choose to see in that situation. Because marriages evolve over time. You evolve over time. And romance, affection is different today than it was for you when you met your spouse a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. Only you can choose to salvage that relationship. Only you can choose to see the beauty, the intrinsic beauty that is there. Does your wife look the same way that she did when you were 22? No. Do you look the same way? Probably not. Right? Do you know more today than you knew then? Absolutely. Are you less patient? Maybe. There are so many factors that have come into play. And now it's your choice to decide what is the basis for our relationship. Maybe the initial basis of our relationship was purely based on attraction. And now that attraction has changed, or now we have our children. We loved each other because we felt we were great parents, we would produce wonderful kids, but our kids are grown now. So what holds our marriage together if it's not the children? That's an answer that you have to find together. But those cracks can be a tremendous growth opportunity, because if you do find those answers, if you find the spackle and the stones, you walk away with a renewed structure. A beautiful, stronger than ever foundation that has been tested and is now secure for the future. Those opportunities may not always look like opportunities because they're disguised, as we said in the beginning of our discussion. They are disguised. They may seem simply like pitfalls, but don't be fooled. They are truly opportunities for us to take advantage and benefit from. Same thing is at work. Unfortunately, today, many of us are familiar with the story. You're working at a firm for 10, 15, 20 years. You show up at the office one day, and HR is in the building. And they come in and say, we appreciate what you've done for this company and how you've built it and you've been part of it, but we have to let you go. And initially, we feel destroyed. Destroyed, violated, cheated, lost. Where do we go from here? How do we support our family? What do we do? Is all hope lost? Will we ever find livelihood and sustenance again? The indecision, the fear of the unknown it's paralyzing. And so that's the reality that society has given to us by teaching us the unemployment numbers and telling us how hard it is to find a job, and maybe it's worth it to just collect unemployment and not even look. That's what society tells us. But you have a different opportunity. You can choose to see beyond the disguise, to see what's around the corner. Maybe you were just lulled into a momentary sense of comfort. You made a decent living, nothing great, and over time you just got used to living life on the edge. And God decided that there's something greater in store for you, but you couldn't find it on your own. You needed to be pushed towards that, and that's why you were fired. And it happens all the time. People are fired and they develop the most amazing, transformative ideas. In fact, there's a story that's told about a chemist. This chemist was working on a new compound, an adhesive, and he spent hours and thousands of dollars developing this adhesive that was going to be so strong, the strongest glue ever known to man. And finally, they developed it, and he brought this adhesive, and he brings home the compound, and he mixes it together, and it falls apart. It doesn't work. So what would you do? What would the average Joe do? The average person would be devastated. They draw themselves into seclusion, depression, because they had given up their life for this product only to see it go down in flames. But this chemist was a special man. He decided that instead of seeing Sarah, pain, he would see Tzohar, a window. He chose this as an opportunity for growth, disguised by a seemingly failure. He's asked himself a simple question. I have a compound that's a light adhesive. Okay? I have a product. The only question is, what problem does this product solve? We thought it would be the super adhesive. It's not. Well, what product can it be? What can it solve? We already have the product. We have the answer. What is the question? And guess what? That man went on to develop the Post-it. Post-it. Something that needed a basic adhesive, nothing too strong. And of course, today, he's living comfortably and successfully, built on the fact that he looked for the opportunity in disguise, the window, rather than the pain. The same thing can be said for our happiness. We always are trying to develop inner peace, inner happiness, to see ourselves growing and progressing. And even though we may have great days, weeks, or months, we often find ourselves falling back into a rut, into a sense of despair, demoralization. And we look at those crossroads, we're faced with the same question. What do you see? What do you see? Do you see all of the failures? Do you see where your life hasn't reached? You see the pitfalls? Or do you see the tremendous opportunities that may still be around the corner? What gave you a sense of confidence in the last few months? Was it true inner confidence? Were you proud of who you are as a person? Or was it some accolades that came from a friend, some smoke that was blown by a colleague at work, your mom, who's always building your confidence? Maybe those cracks that you start to see, that sense of despair you start to feel, that's a warning that you haven't truly finished developing your inner core, your sense of worth deep down inside. It needs more attention. It's the little headache going off in your head. So what do you see? You see an opportunity. You see a point of time that's reminding you, Mendy, you're not special because this guy tells you so or because that person says so. You're special because of who you really are. That's what gives you your true value. So I use this opportunity to really develop the inner faith in myself that I have. And from this point on, I'm stronger than I was before. I'm stronger than I was 6 months ago. Because now my strength comes not from external sources, but rather from my internal trust in who I am. We'll conclude tonight with a story. Story is told in the Talmud of a group of sages that were walking around Jerusalem. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Joshua, and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, the famed scholar who didn't know how to read the alphabet until the age of 40. They were all walking around the old city of Jerusalem. They reached Mount Scopus. Mount Scopus, just around the Temple Mount. They reached Mount Scopus, and when they reached there, they tear their garments out of respect for the destruction of the temple. They slowly mount Mount Scopus, and there they see a fox coming out of the same place where the Holy of Holies once stood. The holiest place in the entire world, where Aaron, the high priest would only enter on Yom Kippur. And they started to cry. And as they started to cry, Rabbi Akiva turned, looked at them, looked at the fox, and he started laughing. He said to them, "Why do you weep?" They said to him, "How can you laugh? What do you mean, why do we weep? We weep because look what has happened. This place that was so holy and so special, where no man could even approach, a fox now lives." Rabbi Akiva says, "Well, that is why I laugh." He says, "You see, I know of two prophecies that were told to the Jewish people. There's the prophecy told to Uriah, and there's the prophecy told to Zechariah, or Zechariah. The first prophecy that was told to Uriah says that because of you, because of the Jewish people's actions, Zion, will be plowed like a field, and Jerusalem will be heaped like a forest. Basically, everything's going to be destroyed. That was the prophecy that Uriah said. And I knew that Zechariah's prophecy about the rebuilding of the temple, that was said many years later. So before his prophecy can be fulfilled, we first have to have the first prophecy completed. When I came here and I saw that the fox was coming out of the Holy of Holies, I realized, the first prophecy has finally been completed. The first step in renovation, those cracks, that's our first step in rebuilding. That's what Rabbi Akiva chose to see. And his colleagues, these were prominent rabbis, and even they struggled seeing the opportunity in disguise. It's natural human condition to live our lives based on what meets the eye. You have to train yourself to see further, to see the opportunities that are in disguise. But with time, we can find that tremendous sense of vision, just like Rabbi Akiva, who chose to remember the second prophecy and saw the completion of the first prophecy as the beginning of this transformative process. So yes, as we celebrate this very solemn day of Tisha B'Av, the day when the temples were destroyed, it is a sad day. And we are pained by the fact that we cannot serve in a temple. We can't go visit a temple. We lack that place, that space of grandeur and splendor. It pains us. But at the same time, we are inspired and motivated by the fact that throughout this process of destruction, we have been rebuilding. transforming this world step by step, person by person, making it more ready for that ultimate third temple, which will be delivered with this coming of ultimate era of redemption, of peace and tranquility. Let it be speedily in our days. I want to thank you for tuning in. As always, your questions, comments, and critiques are welcome at askmendy@gmail.com. Remember, Saturday night starts the observance of Tisha B'Av. If you need more details, you can email us or call us at 813-287-1795. Have a wonderful evening. All the best.